Devils, and we are back. A show. We took the weekend off last week for the bye, and of course we had to, kind of get right, just like the team. But we're back here talking ASU football with you guys. I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me as always, Big John Caldwell. We are running
What's up?
the Devils, and it's like we like to say here on RWD. You give us 30 minutes, we give you the world of ASU football. And
Wednesday.
Big John,
We're on a Wednesday.
Yes, feels good to be talking about a victory after 4 straight frustrating defeats. But the Devils pick up the win against the number 21 Huskies at Sun Devil Stadium not this past weekend, but the weekend before, obviously with the bye. And felt good to go out there and have the Devils kind of shock the college football world. We always say there's a lot of parity in college football, but the Devils definitely showed up. And still no win for the Huskies since 2002 in Tempe. Felt good to deny them that, especially as it wasn't the best crowd for ASU. There were a lot of Washington fans there. I felt like it was about a third of the stadium was Washington fans.
Yeah, the east side was pretty loaded, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was, of course, I had the pleasure of sitting by them for the first half. But it was great to see the Devils pull out the victory, 45-38 over the Huskies. We're certainly going to get into that here in just a minute. And, of course, we will preview this coming weekend's game. The Devils travel on the road up to Northern California to take on Stanford in Palo Alto. Get into all of that. We'll certainly talk some Stanford. But, of course, we got to talk the Washington game. Didn't get a chance to cover it last week with the bye, but we're recapping now. And it was ASU's first FBS win of the year. Of course, their only other win on the season coming against NAU, their first Pac-12 conference win, and interim head coach Shaun Aguano's first career win as the head coach. So congratulations to him. Certainly kind of an unorthodox way to do it. It was kind of a shootout. On paper, you would say that would favor the Huskies,
right?
But John, ASU definitely pulled one out of their hats with this one.
Well, defense played 4 quarters. You saw Mr. Trenton Bourget really step up.
He's 16. Yep.
He knew where the pressure was coming from. He's a really good student of the film. But I think this is more a testament to Coach Aguano's technique. He's been working these guys really hard, running them hard, giving them lots of tough love. They even though it was 10 penalties, that wasn't the deciding variable in this game like it has been in other games. Really, only one penalty on offense. All the rest were on defense. Aguano's technique, though, is markedly different, and the kids seem to respond because they're getting. You can see marked improvement every week. I thought the SC game, you could really see it. It was just the way the ball went, why the ball bounced, a couple of breaks there, but everything clicked. Bourget was managed this game beautifully. We'll get into Trenton's performance in a minute, but good for them. It's rewarding for kids who've been working so hard and haven't given up, and have been out athleted at sometimes and outworked. But in this game, it was neither of those things. They really gave the effort.
And this game kind of marks the de facto halfway point of the season. And it was good. And the Devils have kind of struggled through the first part. We knew this was going to be a tough stretch for them.
Yeah,
we wanted to see the Devils get a win, especially for Shaun Aguano to make his case for the permanent head coaching position. But it was really great to see them go out there. And we thought this game could be a shootout. And for the Devils offense to go out there and put up 45 points against this team, I think was very impressive.
That's a season high. We said, you and I kind of broke it down and said, what does Aguano have to do to become the head coach? All things being equal, I'm not sure all things are equal because I'm not sure we can attract a big name coach yet with the looming investigation without having a letter of accusation yet. But having said that, we said, you and I agreed that he had to win one of those 3 ranked teams, and he's done that now.
Yes.
We also said he needed to get these next 2 wins, and he needed to win a game he probably shouldn't win against UCLA, and they're playing They're playing as good as
And
anybody in this.
yeah,
Right now.
and I mean, this game I think against Washington kind of counts as a game he should, didn't necessarily should have won. But it remains to be seen. I mean, these next two games against Stanford and Colorado were definitely winnable on paper. Granted you're going on the road, but still, these are still two teams that you should have success against, I would think. And then you have UCLA, Washington State, and U of A to
Yeah,
wrap up
don't
the
forget,
season.
don't forget Oregon State in there.
Oregon State, yes,
We got to go up there. Yeah, I mean, we got
those,
them home. We got them
those
home.
are those are some tougher opponents. Certainly, they definitely have their strengths and can give this team fits if they're not prepared. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But definitely one of the stars of this game, backup quarterback Trenton Bergay, stepping in for Emory Jones, who went down with a concussion, had a not necessarily a cheap shot, but kind of a late hit
Right.
when he slid there in the second quarter, and led the team to the win with throwing a great game, 15 of 21, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. The thing that really stuck out to me with as far as Bourguet's performance is the fact that he stayed ready. He did what backup quarterbacks are supposed to do. When the starter goes out, you can step in, and there's not much of a drop off. You can still manage the game. You can still give your team a chance to win, and that's what he did perfectly. Not only that, I think he led them to the win, which is tremendous. And nobody really gave him a shot in this game. We were hearing, a lot of people were talking about, we need to see Paul Tyson at some point when Bourguet was clearly the backup going in. And, he basically did what a backup is supposed to do. He studied, he worked hard in practice. He stayed on the film, stayed on the playbook, stayed on the scouting reports, just made himself available and ready to go if called upon. And as he was in this game, and he certainly did a fantastic job. Certainly,
and when Trenton's in there,
great.
obviously it's a smaller playbook because he's not the runner. He's a pocket guy.
Yeah.
And so you have to take some plays out of the playbook for him. But what he had to manage and had to run, he did exceptionally well. His
some
completion,
of those throws that he made, I mean, just were
touch.
Yeah,
They
touch
were
on
with
them,
touch.
the accuracy, leading the receivers. That touchdown throw to Badger, especially, was extremely impressive. Going to his left, away from the pressure, and hitting Badger in stride when he had defenders right on him, but extending the play, giving Badger time to get open, and then hitting him right in stride in the back of the end zone. You can't do it much better than that.
I thought the ball he dropped into Brian,
Yes.
right short of the goal line. They
Right by the goal line, yes.
Right by the goal line. But 71.5% completion that'll get it done in college football. And by the way, his interception that he threw right in front of the Washington sideline, that was a tough call. That was a third down call. Our distance was, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, and that was about the only place he could put. Everybody was covering. That was the only guy who was remotely open, and that's the only place he could have put that ball. And it was a good play. The guy jumped it. So I don't, while it wasn't a bad interception. They were as far as a big run back or in a bad field, place on the field. It was the only place that he could have put that ball. But no, I'm, we have, I think it gave fans hope that TB16, as we're all calling them now, TB16 is we know we can come in and if God forbid, if Emory goes down again, he's going to get it. Now we're going to get into a minute into more analysis of the two different styles and whether there's a controversy or not. But let's talk about how I was so thrilled that the defense really did step up in this game and play 4 quarters.
Yeah, they definitely did. 3 tackles for loss. That sack there late in the 4th quarter that pinned Washington back towards their own goal line with just a couple minutes to go.
Right.
They definitely got after Michael Penix and forced him in some bad throws. And 6 pass deflections were big. And then, of course, that pick 6 in the first half by Jordan Clark definitely put ASU up 2 touchdowns. That was definitely a tone setter at the time, and one that this defense has been working hard. They hasn't really yielded a ton of results. They haven't put up a lot of big numbers.
Right.
Didn't have any sacks through the first couple games. 2 games of the season, they had no sacks at all.
Right.
So for them to go out there and put up a performance like this, it didn't show up on the scoreboard necessarily, but to hold one of the best offenses in the country and to less than 40 points, and make some of the plays that they did, and keep them out of the end zone in the final seconds when the game was on the line. They needed to stop, and they were able to get one.
Right.
Granted, that was they were benefited by the bad snap that really should have been the end of the game. But the Trevez Moore delay game penalty where he moved the ball.
He kicked the ball with his. He moved it with his foot. I talked to his coach after he couldn't believe what he was watching. Yeah, it was just so the interception, the pick six by Jordan was
that was a lucky bounce.
Lucky it threw it off the back. He threw it off the helmet of his own lineman,
his own offensive lineman.
But if you really watch the play, and I've watched it 10 times now, there was pressure coming from quarterback's right, and he did get a hand on him just as he was you had to have felt the pressure because his footwork was not clean on that throw, but he hit the top of that kid's helmet and bounced up high. But you got to take it, right?
Right. I mean, like I said, they haven't had a lot of lucky bounces go their way this year. So for that to happen was a big boost at the time, and I think this is one game that the defense, well, it didn't show up necessarily on the scoreboard. They certainly played their tails off and gave the team a chance to win, which was you always want to see out of your defense, even against some of the better opposing offenses in the country. So
it's always a good win when you can get scoring from all 3 phases of your game, which is you hear. I'm the special teams guy, but when you get points from all 3, it's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. And our players of the game, presented by Flagstar Bank. For all your mortgage needs, check out xllendingteam.com. For me, I got to go with the ex-Valade, the running back, and himself another great game. 23 carries, 100 and I believe it was 11 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, as well as 4 catches for 22 yards and a receiving touchdown as well. Definitely great to see ex-Valade with he's having a great year. We all kind of expected him to. He's coming here, as a transfer from Wyoming, and kind of be the guy out of the backfield. And he's lived up to the hype. This is his 4th 100-yard rushing game of the season. So he's having himself a fantastic year.
He's got good hands too, man.
Yeah. His ability as a receiver, I think, wasn't really talked about before the season, but he's definitely showed himself a capable target out of the backfield as well. I believe that's his 2nd receiving touchdown of the year, if I'm not
right.
So, and then on defense, we mentioned Jordan Clark's performance: 9 tackles, a tackle for loss, a pass deflection, and then of course that pick 6 in the second quarter. But I'll tell you, there was a play in the second half that really highlights the type of player that Jordan Clark is. When on a wide receiver screen pass, he missed the tackle initially, and then the defense kind of rallied to him and forced the receiver to hesitate, and Clark got back up and tackled the receiver.
Right.
So to that second effort, I think is definitely a credit to him and what he does, and his just his motor and his ability to go out there and make plays can't be understated. And now that he's healthy, because he was hurt at the beginning of the year, he's certainly become one of the fulcrums, one of the focal points of this defense.
Yep.
And he's definitely starting to go out there and make plays, which is great to see.
For me, it's you have 2 different regimes. You have the Edwards regime and you have the Aguano regime. And to me, Jordan has adapted or risen. I know he wasn't healthy and all, but he's I think he really seems like he's comfortable in all that what they're asking him to do. They're moving him around. They're playing different. He's moving safety, coming up in coverage, but he's responded and really risen his game as well as anybody during the Aguano administration here. So on the defensive side of the ball. So it's been.
And he's one of those guys that with the absence of the Markham twins, has stepped up and
Exactly.
played even more snaps, more crucial snaps, and has definitely elevated his game. Having that versatility to play multiple positions. Him and Corey Bethley, they've kind of alternated between them, between corner and safety, and they played very well. And then Isaiah Johnson, another guy who was kind of buried on the depth chart.
Absolutely.
He's stepped up and started to make some plays on that other corner opposite of Roe Terrence.
Yeah, so I think
that secondary is really starting to come together and establish itself.
I think they've coached them up. I think the kids they're buying into the system and they're doing what they've been told to do on the coverage. I think there was one, if I'm not mistaken, there was one series where we went man, and we looked great. I mean, it wasn't a big risk. Everybody looked like they were covering their guys pretty darn well.
Against that passing game, that's one of the most prolific in the country. That's a bit of a risk, but certainly one that it was good to see the coaches not afraid to take with this group. I think that they definitely have something brewing, something good going with this secondary right now.
About time. So we've talked about TB16. Obviously, great performance as far as the player of the game on the offense. For me, you took X.
We talked about his numbers.
Yeah, good numbers. But the fact that he moved the team, the fact that his first handoff went so well, and that they opened up a nice hole and X ran it in. Yeah, that got the whole ball rolling for everybody. And I mean, I don't know.
Build some confidence for him.
I don't know about you. Did you see Ben Scott pulling? My goodness, he was going out and blowing people up like I've never seen him before.
That was great to see. I did notice that. Yeah,
he looked like he was just inspired out there. Yeah. But the fact that Trenton's so calm in the pocket and knows where the pressure is coming from is why he's so successful, because he
and it wasn't just his numbers either. The fact that he passed the eye test,
he managed,
and didn't make a lot of stupid decisions with the ball. Nope. Wasn't afraid to check down. Didn't stare his receivers down. For a guy who hasn't really played many meaningful snaps in his career at ASU, and was told by the coaches a few years ago he would never see the field, that he was just buried too far and would never see the field. For him to go out there and have a game like this, it's just tremendous.
It is. It's a great story. It's a great story, and everybody should know that his brother Coben is a redshirt freshman wide receiver. He's actually much bigger than Trenton, but of all the redshirt wide receivers, he's trending number one in terms of receptions right now. So the dream is to have Trenton throwing to Coben next year. So we'll see. Wouldn't that be cool? That would make college. That'd be
interesting. Yes, that'd be a nice story. Absolutely,
it's college game day material there.
Yeah.
So on defense, I had you took my boy, but I'm going to stick with my captain, Kyle Soley. 5 solos, 7 assists, 12 totals.
How many boys you got on this team? You got.
I got a few, but this is Mr. Reliable. He almost had another pick in this game. He dropped.
Yes, and the fact he had that very nice deflection that could have been a pick. Yeah, that's right. He always, that's the thing about Kyle Soley. I make jokes that how much you have a man crush. You have a man crush on him.
He's playing at all pack level, right?
Yeah, he is, and he just always seems to be in the right spot at the right time. That goes to studying.
He is in the right place.
Being prepared, certainly.
What was the name of that linebacker from Cal a few years ago? The middle linebacker at Cal that had led the conference in tackles, and he got drafted. Evan Weaver. He's having that kind of year, guys. To me, I mean, he's doing enough to get attention of somebody's camp. He's going to be valuable. So,
agreed.
But having an all-pack season. So let's
So
talk
those are our
about.
players. Those are players of the game presented by Flagstar Bank. For all your mortgage needs, check out xllendingteam.com. And before we get into Stanford, we kind of wanted to address a topic that's been very hot on the message boards, and people posted about saying that Trenton Bourguet needs to take over as a starter. This was certainly enough for him to take become QB1 when a lot of other people are questioning whether or not a player should lose his job due to injury. And is there, John? I'll put the question to you: is there a quarterback controversy in Tempe with Emory Jones and Trenton Bourguet?
Kinda. Among the players, I'll tell you this: among the players,
Towing that line there, George Bush. Toe that
no,
line.
I can tell you this: the O line, a lot of the kids on the team want to see Bourguet play, want to see him start. And
I think I think we will see Trenton Bourguet again before the season's over. Emory Jones has done serviceable at the position, but you mentioned we were talking about this during pre-show. His record was 1-4
right.
as a starter. He hasn't always been the most consistent when it comes to leading the team down the field on scoring drives.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he had to go up against some pretty tough competition. And I'll be interested to see what Trenton Bourguet does if he's ever put up against some similar defenses. Although probably the toughest defenses that they were going to see all year are in the rearview mirror at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out. But I definitely think that with Bourguet's performance, Emory Jones is on a short leash. If he struggles,
he has to be. Yeah,
if he struggles and just can't seem to lead the team downfield against a defense that they really should be moving the ball against, then don't be surprised if he gets the hook and you see Trenton Bourguet out there.
The reason why there's a controversy, and I say maybe, is because Coach Aguano said right after the game, it's going to be a battle. The next time he went to the press was after Tuesday, after they had a walkthrough. There was no hitting, it was a simple walkthrough, and he said, "Man who shouldn't lose his job," and that and now within the third time he's talked to the press yesterday, Tuesday, he said, or I'm sorry, today he said, "You don't lose your job for getting injured." It just seems like the goalposts have moved a little bit, and that's what's sort of giving me pause, because the way you manage this is everything. Now, I'm being told through friends who talk to Coach that he's keeping Emory on a very short leash, and he'll decide that. But what I don't want to see happen here is get us down by 2 scores and having Trenton have a big hole to dig out of here. That's all.
But that may be the only way he gets on the field. I mean, we'll see, but that could be the case where he gets on the field, having to lead the team back from a deficit. I mean, it's that old, that Frank Reich type of situation that he's forced into.
Yeah, it's a little.
But you won't hear him complain about that. He's going to relish, I think, any opportunity that he gets.
Oh, his attitude is, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to keep preparing like I always have. Hardworking kid, he's not ever going to complain. He's just not that kind of human being. So, I mean,
he's happy with whatever he can get.
Well, yeah, I mean, the kid's driven by, I mean, he knows what he can do, right? He knows what he knows. And he's capable. He's proven that now. He's capable. I don't like when coaches sort of say one thing and then immediately change their rhetoric. I'd rather see them say, and there's nothing wrong with the approach of saying, whoever practices better this week, especially when you're coming off of a concussion, whoever practices better this week should get the nod. That there's nothing wrong with that. The old adage of best player, you don't lose your job because of injury. I get all that, but there's only one quarterback. And every other position, you have two. You have two positions.
Yeah, but I still think you got to put the guy out there who's going to give you the best chance to win.
Well,
and at the moment, to me, that's still Emory Jones, because he's a good dual threat. We've seen flashes where he looks like the player that was so highly recruited out of Georgia, and led Florida his first couple of years very, very well. I just, I don't think we've seen the ceiling for Emory Jones just yet. And, as long as he's healthy and not turning the ball over, not making stupid decisions with the ball, I think you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, at least in the short term.
Well, like I say, the good news is that I think the coaches know what the parameters are around pulling him.
Yeah.
And let's face it, with you have he's somewhat of a marked man out there. I'm not saying people are going to come after him on purpose, but it can happen. I've been in locker rooms that pay bounties for going after quarterbacks. You hate to see it, but it happens.
And that's true, and that's going to be true for most quarterbacks, especially ones that are, elusive and dual threats like Emory is. So we'll see how things go going forward. Again, they're not going to be facing some of the tougher defenses in the Pac-12 these last few weeks of the season. So I think there is opportunity for both these guys to get on the field. Just see who gives the team the best chance to win. I think is going to ultimately get the nod. So moving on here to Stanford, coming up this week, the Cardinal certainly always well coached, always been a very big physical team under head coach David Shaw. His 12th season as the head coach of the Cardinal, 16th with the program. He was OC for 4 years under Jim Harbaugh before he went to the NFL. 95-49 record, very, very impressive tenure there in Palo Alto for David Shaw, and he's an offensive coach. Him as his offensive coordinator and former quarterback Tavika Pritchard, have certainly had their ups and downs a little bit, especially in the last couple of years. But this is an offense that I think is starting to find itself as we can go to the next slide here. They're, just talking about, they're a little bit like ASU in how their season has gone.
Yeah.
They faced tough teams early on. They had a win over Colgate to open the year, just like ASU. They faced a cupcake early on with NAU. But then they had, a tough stretch where they lost to USC, Washington, Oregon, and then, played Oregon State very, very close, only losing by 1.
Yep.
So they've been able to keep the deficits under 20 points, which in college football, when you're facing ranked teams, is, pretty good. I think it certainly shows that you're competitive and you're not just rolling over for the team on the opposite sideline.
And when you talk about the teams being so similar in terms of the way the season's played out, they've also been similar in the amount of points scored and what points allowed. And both teams have allowed about 28, almost exactly, and they both have allowed about 29. So it's remarkable how similar that has been.
Yeah, and they're coming off a big win over a rival Notre Dame at South Bend over the weekend. This was a very close contested game.
Good game.
Cardinal ultimately were able to come out with the win. And Stanford, Notre Dame, granted, they have not lived up to expectations this year. This is not a team that has played.
Don't get me started.
Up to its potential. So take this with a grain of salt. This was, this is a Notre Dame team that has really struggled through the first half of the season, and they're not even ranked anymore.
Right.
But it was still kind of an embarrassment for a 1-4 Stanford team to come into South Bend and beat Notre Dame in kind of a low-scoring game.
Well,
so
I'm going to keep. How many years have we seen this movie? Notre Dame, with the East Coast bias to the press, always puts them in the top 10, and they've been they haven't won anything in 5 years, is it? Or I don't think they've done anything big in 5 years.
No, not especially. I mean,
well, and I don't realize
they've gone to some decent bowl games, but they haven't really won anything significant. That's
right.
That's true.
They haven't gone to a playoff yet, and it's just they're not in the discussion. Is my point, but everybody wants to put them in the discussion. And that's that East Coast press bias, and
it's still
it's
Notre
good
Dame.
to see but I love seeing a Pac team destroy that narrative, right? Come on.
That's certainly what Stanford did. I mean, they play Notre Dame every single year. It feels.
That's right. Yeah, it's contractual,
It's
right?
considered a rivalry. So for
Yep.
them to go in there and win, after going through this,
Hmm.
4-game stretch that they had, where I mean they were competitive in just about all of these games, but just really weren't able to hang with most of these teams. And even a game that that you can make an argument they should have won against Oregon State. Um, so this is a Notre Dame team. This is a Stanford team that has, like
New life,
ASU, maybe turned a corner a little
new
bit.
life.
This is
You
not the
bet.
same team that went out and lost to Washington by 18, lost to Oregon by 18.
Right.
Has improved. They maybe established their identity a little bit, and they're playing a much more competitive brand of football
Yeah.
in Palo Alto. And but they're dealing with some things right now. They're dealing with a lot of injuries, and EJ Smith, Emmett Smith's son,
Right. Right.
is expected to be kind of their all everything, do everything running back. He's out for the season.
Right.
And their top wide receiver, Michael Wilson, who was having a nice year himself. They had 26 receptions for 418 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year, and he's out for what's sounding like a significant time, not for the season necessarily, but at
For us.
least a
Yeah.
few weeks. He'll be out this game. Then you got edge rusher David Bailey, who's a starter. Left tackle Jack Lehrer, also a starter, and their leading tackler. Those two will definitely be out. Lavani Damuni, their middle linebacker, who's their leading tackler, he's questionable for this game. And then 3 offensive linemen, Walter Rouse, Barrett Miller, and Levi Rogers, are all questionable. But David Shaw said earlier this week in his press conference they are trending in the right direction to play this week. So, but if they're not at 100%, that's certainly a hit to their depth at the offensive line.
Yeah.
So,
But
they're going. The Stanford Cardinal have like ASU, suffered some nagging, debilitating injuries at a few spots, and be interesting to see how that affects their performance on Saturday.
My take on the Cardinal hasn't changed in the last few years. It's always been predicated on a really good quarterback, a good running back, and 2 good tight ends. The running back is
Well,
gone.
and offensive line, the offensive
Yeah,
line.
and they've always
they put a ton of offensive linemen in the pros.
they have, and they don't rebuild, they reload every year by
Yes.
body type. It's like guy goes out, the exact same body goes in.
Yeah, right.
But my point is, they only have 1 good tight end this year. They have their running back is down, and their quarterback is not, Andrew Luck. So it's not the same Stanford, folks.
Yes.
And there's sufficient. There's all kinds of weaknesses on the defense that we can really go after, especially in the secondary. But we're going to talk about that in a second. But injuries are, everybody's got. That's why we always said it's all about depth. You got to stay healthy if you want to win. We're down a few players too. Ladarius Henderson is broken. Let's say he's not going to play. He broke a tendon in his sparky finger. Right. He can't.
Ring finger.
Ring finger. Yeah, he can't raise it. They may do something to tape it up, let him play. I don't. I don't know. I'm hearing that it's going to require surgery here pretty soon. But no, it's let's go into the offense, because there's some holes here.
And they've been able to put up some numbers. They average almost 400 yards passing. The rushing attack hasn't really been there, but it's starting. I think it's starting to come around, because they were able to run the ball a little bit against Notre Dame. But
right.
you mentioned the quarterback position, Tanner McKee. He's a senior. I believe this is his 3rd year as a starter. 1,537 yards, 10 touchdowns, and I believe 5 interceptions.
Is it okay?
It's 5 interceptions on the season, and then also a rushing touchdown. He's a local kid from right by my neck of the woods over here in Peoria at Centennial High School.
And Centennial played Chandler while Aguano was the head coach here a few years ago.
Yeah.
And McKee. So Aguano has seen him before, up front, up close and personal, and he kind of knows.
He's a good player. I mean, he's got a good arm, but he's been a little bit mistake prone.
Yeah.
If you get pressure on him, he's not a dual threat. He's not very capable, outside of the pocket, and he doesn't run very well.
Yeah.
So, if you can get after him a little bit, he's kind of a statue there in the pocket. He can move a little bit. He's a bigger kid. He's a little tough to bring down, but if you can get pressure on him, he has shown himself prone to throwing interceptions. So
Yeah.
he had he had that memorable one here last year when ASU played them on a Friday night.
That's right. Yeah.
Jack Jones had the contested interception.
Yep.
And then lateraled to DeAndre Pierce, who took it in for a touchdown.
Heady
best
play,
plays
man.
of last year.
Heady play. One of the best plays of the year.
Yeah.
Was it Sports Center top 10.
Yeah.
I'll just point it while Aguano has seen him in high school. Chandler did dominate that game, by the way.
No surprise.
Well, I think they had scouted him and knew how to contain him.
Yeah.
Being that he wasn't a
Tanner
runner.
McKee, not much of a rusher. I mean, he's gotten negative 60 net rushing yards.
There you go.
So he's not a very mobile guy. Certainly someone that you collapse the pocket around him, force him into some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You will make those. So, and then their running back Casey Filkins has filled in very well, I think, for EJ Smith. Certainly somebody that you have to contain. He's really started to come into his own this year with Smith's injury. 114 carries, 430 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground, and 16 receptions for 203 yards.
They carry the load.
He's had a couple nice games throughout the course of the season. Definitely somebody that they lean on to carry the load, and somebody that they'll give the ball to in a lot of different ways. It's kind of become one of the primary weapon on offense, especially with the injury to Michael Wilson. I expect to see a heavy dose of him on Saturday. They'll work a couple guys like Caleb Robinson and Brendan Barrow in, but Casey Filkins is probably going to be the focal point of this offense going forward. And then you got a couple of receivers who are going to need to step up with the injury to Michael Wilson, and these guys have been in the program for a while. Elijah Higgins, Bryson Tremaine Higgins, 24 receptions, 206 yards and a touchdown on the year. Tremaine, 17 receptions, 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. You'll also see another guy on this team who's who's made some plays this year, and that is it's been
Benjamin Urasek.
Well, yeah, the tight end Benjamin Urasek. I mean, that's another focal point of that you mentioned before. The focal point of this offense has always been a good tight end that they can get the ball to.
Correct.
Throughout the time.
And a good Stanford team usually has 2. This is the guy that's carrying the load. So
yeah, I mean, you talk about going over the years, all the different receivers tight ends that they've had.
Oh my gosh.
Zach Ertz, Austin Hooper, Colby Parkinson is another one.
Right.
I know I'm probably overlooking a few, but those are guys who definitely made plays for them. And I'm sure they'll have another receiver step up too with, this is a team that will use 3 wide quite a bit. And I'm probably forgetting one guy who's gonna need to step up at the receiver spot. I think John Humphreys is the other one I was thinking of.
All right.
Number 5, he's another guy who had some nice catches against Notre Dame, and could definitely play a part in this game as well. And then on defense, they switched to a 4-3 scheme this year, but they're giving up a ton of yards, allowing almost 200 yards rushing and over 400 yards passing. But they still have some playmakers on this team. Linebacker Levani Damuni, we talked about him earlier. He is questionable for this game, but he has had a good year. Their leading tackler with 38, and he's also got a pass deflection on his resume. And then the other linebacker, Ricky Mazon, has been in this program for a while. He's one of the leaders on that defense. 27 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. He's the guy on the outside. And then they got a couple of very talented safeties. Kendall Williamson is a guy who's played very, very well this year. He lined up at corner initially, and since they've moved into safety, he's become even more of a playmaker, and they line him up all over the field. He fills up that stat sheet: 38 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, an interception, 2 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. on the year. And then the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week, Jonathan McGill, he had a nice game against Notre Dame, 4 tackles, 1 for loss, and a fumble recovery, as well as the game-winning pass breakup. And then with the injury to David Bailey, you're going to have to watch out for Stephen Herron. He's another guy. He's the other edge rusher who should make going to be looking to make some plays in this game. And then the defensive tackle, Tobin Phillips, is having a nice year, 16 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. Another guy worth mentioning as well is the senior Caillou Blue Kelly, the corner. He hasn't really, he hasn't gotten an interception so far this year, but he's definitely somebody that looks like he could be like a first or second round pick. Certainly one of the best cover corners in the Pac-12. He had an interception when Stanford came here last year, so
that's right.
Certainly somebody you got to watch out for.
In talking to the players on Saturday, I had the Booster Club held a little meet and greet for some of the players over at Pedal House, and they really feel like they can hang 50 on these guys. Structurally, they're a lot like Washington without as good at personnel, they felt. So I think they're ready. They're ready for
and the fact that they've given up 197 yards on the ground.
That's right.
This year, this is a team you absolutely have to be able to run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, especially since I think they're going through some growing pains, moving over from the 4-3 to moving from the 3-4 to 4-3.
Right, there you go.
That's never an easy transition. It usually takes a few weeks, if at the very least, to get it right. And that's assuming you have the personnel for it.
You're recruited to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't know if this team has it. And I understand they're trying to they probably made the transition because they felt like the personnel fit the scheme a little bit better. But
well, I think they made a change.
Looking at it on paper and then actually running it on the field are two very different things.
I believe they made a change at DC, that this was his change. If I'm
well,
not mistaken.
They've had the same DC, Lance Anderson, for 9 seasons.
Okay.
I think this was more of a personnel decision.
This was okay. So was this what
the way that the personnel kind of shook out, between some of the transfers that they had, and just just the depth that they've had at certain positions. I think maybe trying to get some of those back end guys out on the field.
Yep.
Kind of what they decided to make the move for, and they struggled with it. And this is certainly, I think, an opportunity for ASU. If they can put some points on the board, they give themselves, certainly, as always, a good chance to win this game.
Sure.
So, and then just in closing, you always like to mention the special teams. Joshua Carty, kicker for Stanford, was the Pac-12 Special Teams Player of the Week for the second time this season. And he was 3 for 3 against Notre Dame in field goals, and he has not missed a field goal this season. 7 for 7, as well as perfect on point after attempts as well. So
you couldn't have won that game without him. And you can make the case that
he did. I think he did make a field goal with 2 minutes left to put them up 16-14, which ultimately was the final, and the defense held there late in the fourth quarter. So that was certainly Stanford's scrappy. They've always been scrappy. They've always been a team that, even when they didn't have the best talent, were very disciplined. They're not going to beat themselves with a ton of dumb penalties and whatnot.
There you go.
They're well coached. They're obviously very smart group of kids. They didn't always have the best athletes, and once they started getting those athletes, when Harbaugh did, they were a force in the Pac-12. But and they weren't that way for many years under David Shaw as well. But the last few years, they haven't really been able to recruit the same type of same caliber of athletes. Still, we're getting quality offensive linemen. They've had some good running backs come through there, but they haven't had a game changer at quarterback. They've had some decent receivers and tight ends, obviously, but just not the same caliber of players that they've had before. And then the defense, I think, has kind of fallen off at times. the past couple of years as well. So
I mean, you can make
this
the
is
case. Everybody got affected for the COVID year, man. Everybody
yeah.
had a hiccup in there in terms of executing their plans. And I don't think they particularly hit the portal. They might have maybe for
Stanford has always
it's
struck me as a program and a school in general as somebody who sticks to tradition,
right,
and they
right,
haven't. I don't know if they've necessarily changed with the times as well as
right.
other schools have.
Well,
That's kind of affected their ability to keep up with other
mhm.
programs that
Well, they have another
that have those caliber of athletes that are
right.
made available in the portal.
We've taken advantage of it. They have sort of an institutional problem in the sense that if a kid wants to play our fifth or sixth year, if he gets it, if the grades aren't good enough to get into grad school, they're not gonna stick around. So that's kind of a built-in thing there. And we took advantage of it. So anyway, yeah, it's still Stanford Cardinal. Like you say, they're sneaky. They're
Yeah.
the kids go to have a scholarship, all get scholarships just like our kids, and they have they're capable.
Yeah,
And the fact that they got new
they are very capable, and they're starting to play some better ball. I mean, between
yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks ago now, losing by 1 to to
Oregon State.
Oregon State. Thank you. Losing by 1 to Oregon State, and now beating
Right.
Notre Dame. It's a team that I think may have found something. Maybe they turned the corner on defense and are not giving up the big play as much anymore. We'll certainly see when ASU comes to Palo Alto. But as we do as always here on RWD, our keys to the game presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Check to support local athletics. Check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And for me, X gonna give it to you. Xavier Valade has proven himself as a playmaker and somebody who can be a game breaker, and you're somebody you want to get a lot of, give that guy minimum of 20 touches a game. Let him and the other playmakers like Daniel Ngata, Elijah Badger, Brian Thompson, let them go out there and do what they do, because they've certainly proven themselves capable of going out there and making big plays when given the opportunities. I think this is a game on offense. You should open up the playbook a little bit more, and let them take some downfield shots. Maybe work in a couple trick plays. Stanford has certainly had a reputation in the past as being a disciplined team. And, it's not going to over pursue and whatnot. But I think this is an opportunity for this team to use its speed, get outside a little bit, get out into space, and utilize that a little bit, especially with some of the injuries that Stanford's got up front on the defensive side of the ball. It's an opportunity for those playmakers to have themselves a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly something that I'd like to see.
Yep.
The coaches open up the playbook and let X and some of those other players cook a little bit.
Well, one of the playmakers, when you open up the playbook, tight ends start really coming to mind. And the last game we saw, come on, not Swinson, but on the other side,
Jalen
Conyers really step up, not just block well, but he showed great hands.
Yeah, he had that big catch on third
down
on the game-winning drive.
That's right.
It was very, very big. So
it's still a mystery.
Work those tight ends in as well. I don't see there's any reason why not.
Swinson was not targeted at all. Messiah was not targeted. He had 0 targets last week. So I'm just wondering if there's what's wrong there, or maybe he had he was in the game for at least a few series. But I've got to think that he's still a huge weapon where there's big physical mismatches with little DBs.
Yeah.
But no, I can't argue with the pressure, especially with a pocket guy.
Yeah, and then defensively chop down the trees. Don't let Stanford get into a rhythm. I mentioned Tanner McKee. He's kind of a scarecrow statue there in that pocket. You put pressure on him, he's going to make some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So he's thrown 5 interceptions on the season. He certainly shown himself capable of putting the ball up for grabs, and if you can get some pressure on him, he'll get some mistakes. I mean, we certainly saw that last week when the front was able to get after Penix from Washington a little bit and force him into some bad throws. If you do something like that against Tanner McKee, you can expect a similar result because he's not a guy who handles pressure very well. And unlike, he's not the athlete that Penix is, he can't really scramble out of trouble a lot. So definitely something I think you got to pin your ears back and come after him a little bit, and don't let that that offense get into a rhythm. Clamp down on Filkins because they're going to be looking to put him to work as well.
Well, here's mine. I think we got to get out to an early start, especially if this is going to be the boat race we think it may be. Way it's shaping up. You got to get on this. You got to get on the board. So getting in.
I don't know if we want to speak that into.
Yeah, well, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that against UW. But the fact that that we were able to adjust, I was really, it was a pleasant surprise. And I'm like you. You got to let X run. This is a game where I mean, if he can get close to 150 yards, I think we win this game. And then, yeah, third and fourth down manageable situations have got to be. I think we're getting better at that. I thought
that was a big key to success against Washington. Definitely. Exactly. Extending those drives.
Keep the chains moving. Don't get behind the chain. I thought that Notre Dame really got behind the chains several times in that game.
Yeah, they did.
And it hurt them. But I really want to see Badger and Thompson. I expect them to have big games. I'm like you got to get after this quarterback, and especially when you have all these O linemen who if you get all three back, that's going to be really surprising.
They may not miss the game, but they may not be 100% either.
Right. So go after the subs.
Stanford may have to dip into their offensive line depth a little bit, and we'll see. If you can put pressure on them, they may not hold up.
Right. For two ball clubs that have newfound life. And they're feeling their oats now. They're feeling pretty good about themselves after some big upsets. I think, to me, it's all about it's in the trenches. Is who's going to smash each other in the mouth right away and establish the line of scrimmage. So I really look for the first series on both sides with both teams to see who's really who's beating who. That's going to tell me a lot about this game, quite frankly.
Agreed. Yeah. So score prediction time. I got the Devils going into Palo Alto and pulling out the victory, 34-24. I think this is a game. It's going to be contested for about 3 quarters or so. ASU I think should maintain a lead through most of the game, and then I think come fourth quarter they'll put together a long sustained drive, try to milk the clock a little bit, and it'll culminate in a ex-Valade rushing touchdown that'll basically saw the game away.
I like that. Yeah, I like Valade getting being the clutch man here. It's again, I said if he can get 150, get over 150, I think you win this game.
Yeah,
and that means that he's running for all 4 quarters and running strong. I see us winning too. I see a little closer, 31-27. I kind of see it 7-3, 14 and 7 for the quarters for us. I think the third quarter will be big.
Yeah, see, I'm not like you. I don't map out every individual quarter. I just kind of eyeball it.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen from both teams going into this game, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, we both picked UW to win 2 weeks ago, so I think we're kind of due for a win here.
It's okay. Everybody took UW. Nobody won big money there.
Yeah.
So, but no,
So, this is early kickoff, 1 p.m. We'll be on the Pac-12 network. ASU, a little surprised they're an underdog in this game, but college is always 7-point favorite at home. That's an automatic 7-point favorite. We both think they'll hit the over in this game. So definitely should be an interesting contest coming out of the bye. We'll see what ASU looks like with Emory Jones back under center, and how that offense plays and what that defense does against Tanner McKee and that Cardinal offense. So should be a good matchup, I think, coming up this weekend.
Hopefully,
So
Glenn Thomas, our OC, has, now that he saw what Trenton can do in terms of managing a game that didn't involve having to run as a quarterback. Maybe he understands that he doesn't have to have such a big playbook.
yeah,
Um,
and yeah,
and
I'd like to see him open up the playbook.
I
To
would
be
too, but
honest,
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying,
just
yeah,
get the playmakers involved.
well,
Spread the ball out a little bit. And against this team, I think that they don't have a ton of athleticism, team speed on defense.
right.
You can kind of exploit those one-on-one matchups and move the ball downfield
Yeah,
pretty well.
to me, one of the biggest hidden stats in that whole game against Washington, offense only had one penalty.
Yeah,
That was
huge.
huge. It's
Oh yeah,
big. I mean, it has been a lot worse than that. It's been about half and half. Now
yeah,
it's mostly on the defense now.
yeah. Very
So
true. So that'll do it for us here on RWD. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We say good night. Go Devils. Forks up. Shake the trees. Chop those trees down.
there you go, baby. Merry Christmas. Cut the tree.